All right. First, I'd like to introduce our moderator. Shalane Evans is a graphic designer, a bookseller, and a part of our publishing team here at Village Books. And Kai Weeks is a writer, actor, and playwright who lives in Bellingham, Washington. Previously, his short plays have been produced at the Sylvia Center for the Arts, where he has also appeared on stage as an actor. He's here to discuss his first novel, Princess of Lies. Please welcome Kai Weeks and Shalane Evans.
Wow.
Okay. So this is your first novel, Princess of Lies.
Yes.
And just for those in the audience who maybe haven't read it yet, it's this very dreamlike novel with two main characters who kind of find each other in this strange city, and they I'm trying really hard to figure out how to explain this without spoiling it, because I think a lot of the twists and turns are pretty good, and they should be discovered by the reader. So I'll just say that it's a very dreamlike story. It draws from fairy tales and stage plays, and it kind of delves into kind of scarier territory towards the middle. And it was just really a great read. And I remember when you first came to us with this book, you were talking about how you weren't sure if it was going to be taken as an adult novel or a young adult novel. And I really feel like it's kind of timeless. It's kind of ageless, because there's a lot of good, solid, like young adult storytelling in it, but there's also plenty of humor in it. For adults, there was a lot of wordplay and a lot of references that I really enjoyed as a grown-up reader. So I guess my first question to you is just what kind of drew you to this kind of story? What was your inspiration for starting this story?
Well, first of all, thank you very much. That was very kind of you. Second, like I guess my initial inspiration for that tone came from the kind of books that I loved to read as a child, especially a series of unfortunate events which were coming out around that time. I was really into the various works of Diana Wynne Jones, who wrote Howl's Moving Castle, among many other books. And also it was inspired by the movies that I like to watch, like Labyrinth and Studio Ghibli movies, which all in some way had that kind of mixture of humor and darkness. And that's kind of what I wanted to see more of in the world. And so I manifested that. And yeah, that's kind of where that came from initially, was just trying to develop a story with that tone, and having it be sort of for the middle grade young adult audience works for that, because I feel like younger readers tend to appreciate that kind of disparity between, the humor, the wackiness, and also, when it takes a dark turn, they are a lot more receptive and open to a story that goes in those places, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it completely makes sense. Yeah, I really got that humor kind of mixed with that darkness throughout the book. And what really drove that home for me was the dialogue of the characters, and how it felt like they were acting on stage, because the book does follow a group of actors, traveling actors, who end up in the city. But then they were also kind of acting off stage within the city, and there was that dynamic between them with their dialogue. And just all those scenes in the book, especially surrounding the stage plays and the sets, and how you describe that, all really made it come to life for me. And it was just super vivid scenes. And we mentioned before that you have a background in that. You have theater experience, both as an actor and a playwright. could you talk about how you kind of poured that experience into your writing, and if you had to do some research on stages and plays, or if it was just all from that firsthand experience that you have?
So yeah, well, at the time that I wrote it, most of my stage experience, especially during the early stages of writing the book, came from a more educational theater space. I was in community college living in Arizona at the time. And I got into it through acting, but I ended up doing a lot of behind the scenes work as well. And the main character of the novel, Rena, is a stagehand. In fact, it's part of the book that I wanted to write, that anytime she actually has to talk in front of people, she gets terrified. And I chose that that experience because I realized just how hard it was to do everything. Well, acting is very hard, but so is everything else. And it's the sort of behind the scenes work that I feel doesn't get appreciated half as much as it should. And so when I was thinking of this world and these characters, and like the first thing that I thought of was the city. The city was sort of the impetus for the rest of it. And when I began thinking of, okay, what kind of main character would be most equipped to live in this world, to handle this challenge that the city presents, I thought that a stagehand, that a techie would be the best hero to sort of overcome that world.
Yeah, that's great, because I do remember the Rena's the main character is there. She has this kind of actor family that she's traveling with, and most of them were pretty useless throughout the book.
Yes.
So it was really fun to see kind of like that behind the scenes type of character really be able to shine and act as this emotional through line throughout the book.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of get a glimpse into this world of like set displays and stagehands that a lot of people, when they think about theater and when they think about acting, that's not the first job that they think of. They don't think of the person who sets up the lights. They think of the person who's delivering the monologue. So that was just a great perspective to write the book from. And then you mentioned the city itself was a big motivator for you. And it's a bit of an anachronistic setting. There's automobiles and there's lights, but then there's also, I won't spoil too much, but there is magic in the story, and there is sort of this kind of out of place, out of time feeling throughout the story. Can you talk about how you kind of used the setting to set up that mood and that feeling?
Yeah. Well, originally, when I first wrote the very early draft, the city was more set in a kind of traditional fantasy, like Hobbit town, sort of late Middle Ages vibe. But then when I started doing more research on like stagecraft and older stage techniques, I found that a lot of the things I wanted to put in the story came well after that. So I incorporated more different things from all kinds of time periods. And I feel like that kind of also gave the story its own vibe. Like it doesn't exist within the same kind of fantasy, hobbits and dwarves and Dungeons and Dragons kind of feel. Like this is a world in which magic does exist, but maybe the dragons have all died out and it's a bit after that. So like I guess you could say it's sort of in that kind of Middle Earth, but after a few hundred years kind of
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I really enjoyed the setting. I thought it added a lot to the story, because the story is thematically it's not as straightforward as regular YA. I found the ending to be a bit bittersweet, and there was this kind of theme throughout it that maybe sometimes it's okay to lie to yourself and to other people, which is a pretty unusual theme to explore. If you want to get into it, maybe you could talk a little bit about kind of what motivated you to tell that kind of a happy ending, but not exactly a happy ending sort of story.
Right. Yeah, that was kind of something that I got a bit of pushback on from like my early readers, was they wanted it to be happier at the end. But I don't know. I feel like if I went for a more straightforward, happy kind of everything's okay, all the wrongs in the world have been resolved. Well, for one thing, I feel like people wouldn't believe it right away, right? Like they would say, this is an ending. This isn't what happens. It's what, it would feel like a writer tacked it on, which technically it did, because I made it all up. But also I feel like the sort of bittersweet ending, as you said, it comes a lot from the fairy tales that I was reading that an audience would be familiar with. A lot of them don't end in the kind of, like, I guess, Disney way that people think of fairy tales now. A lot of them are kind of sad, but not dreary. It's not, oh, the world is doomed, we're all condemned to misery. But at the same time, and I think that this is something that younger younger readers get a lot more than we give them credit for, almost, is that there are disappointments, right? We don't always get things the way that we want them. Especially childhood is a prime age for like pets dying and stuff. And so we have a lot of early experiences with disappointment, with sadness. And I felt like it would have been dishonest for me to turn away from that entirely.
Yeah, I definitely got that throughout the book, and I'm inclined to agree that kids can handle a lot more than what we give them credit for.
Right.
So even though this is kind of an in-between novel where adults can enjoy it and young adults can enjoy it, I can imagine people being able to read this probably as early as middle school, because it's just really digestible, and it's not this saccharine story. It's a little scary in parts, but that humor throughout it kind of lifts it up and makes it really fun to read. I think if we talk any more about the ending, we're gonna ruin it for folks who haven't finished the book yet.
Oh,
So
right.
I'm trying really hard not to get too excited about it. So let's maybe talk about the difference between writing a play and writing a novel, because it sounds like you have most of your experience doing screenwriting and things like that. Was there any unique challenges when it came to doing a novel instead, or like anything interesting that you had to change about your writing style to get that across?
Well, with writing a novel, you have a lot more control, right? Playwriting is a lot more of an active collaboration, where even after you've written the whole script, everything's done, you write end of play and then send it off. It's still not a full product until you have actors, you have, of course, as I've written about in the book, all the people who come together to make it happen. And it sort of comes to life that way. With the book, everything that's there is everything that's there. And so I have a lot more freedom to make a lot of the creative decisions that normally an actor would make. Usually in playwriting, I tend to write very little in the way of stage direction or anything that's not just the dialogue, because I want to give directors and actors freedom to explore the text in a way that feels natural to them. So it was kind of both liberating and terrifying to not have that to fall back on.
Right.
You know, it's kind of a very lonely process writing a novel. But at the same time, there's still a bit of collaboration I found in the world of writing fiction and novels, because even if the actors aren't there to sort of make it come to life on stage, even if there's not a set designer or lighting people, it kind of becomes the reader's job to do that sort of lighting and acting in their head, in their imagination. I tend to be a pretty visual reader and like have these really like vivid images in my head as I read. So hopefully that's something that the readers of Princess of Lies can do as well.
Yeah. And we did just get a really good question in. Someone asked, which character did you enjoy writing the most?
Probably Leffo, the playwright slash actor of the theater troupe, because he's so egotistical. He's such a jerk, and I love writing characters who in their heads have no idea that they could possibly be wrong about anything. They live in their own little world, their own reality, in which they are the best, and everything around them is both centered around them and defined by their own interpretations. And so, yeah, he was a lot of fun to write. And it was good to kind of get that out of my system. In a lot of ways, he was based off of a lot of the actors that I knew during the time in my life in which I was writing it. Like especially where I was, as I said, in a very educational setting, a lot of people there sort of come in with the belief that they are going to be, you know, the next big thing that, you know, that everyone else is there for them. So it was kind of cathartic for me to sort of show someone who shared that view and was also completely ridiculous.
Yes, that's good. So Rena was kind of inspired by your time as a stagehand, and then it sounds like Leffo was also kind of shaped by people you've met. Were there any other characters that were sort of inspired by your experiences that way?
Well, yeah, Rena was, and also I think that there was a lot of me in Rena's friend. I cannot describe this character too much without giving too much away. But
I know she's a little bit central to the plot.
Yeah, Stalil. Yeah, but yeah, she is very much based off of me growing up. You know, this kind of like nervousness, shyness, but also like has a lot of feelings that need to come out in whatever outlet that she possibly can get them.
Right. So I'm just reading another one of the questions.
Nice, nice.
Someone asked if there's anything that you experienced in the outside world that was important in shaping the story, but maybe didn't make it into the book. If there was any experiences like that.
Oh, that's a very good question. Well, to answer it as best as I can, when I first started writing it, I was not living in Bellingham. I was living in Arizona, and that kind of desert setting. The city in the book is in the middle of a desert, this kind of wasteland, and the big driving thing of the book, especially towards the middle and towards the end, is trying to get out of it. That's kind of where I was, the part of my life that I was in, where, you know, the feeling of being stuck in the same place for a really long time, for longer than you intended to be there, and the sort of trying to think of the word, but yeah, the feeling of knowing that where you are is not where you should be is something that I drew on a lot in the formation of the book's story.
Yeah, and I can see that a lot in the character Stilio, because she kind of goes through that same moral quandary. You said earlier that writing a book was a lot more of a lonely process than doing plays, but you still had help along the way. Can you talk about a little bit who supported you and what that process was like?
Yeah, I got a lot of help. First of all, someone who, you know, really the book would not exist without her is my friend CJ, who I believe is in the chat. So hi. Yeah, a lot of the book's humor was inspired by her, especially like a lot of times growing up, we would sort of write things for each other, and so a lot of the sense of humor in my writing comes from the kind of characters and ideas that we would make up to entertain each other. So I wrote the book, and then I showed it to her, and at the time of writing it, I wasn't sure if it was actually something that I wanted to publish, to explore writing more draft stuff, or if it was just going to be a personal project. And she was very supportive of me going forward with it. So yeah, she was a big help. Another person who helped me is my sister, Lee, who actually works in the publishing industry, and so she did all of the layout and content that's in the book that's not the actual story. So yeah, she was invaluable. And the other person who I would like to acknowledge right now is the cover artist who did this excellent artwork. Sorry that there is, yes.
Yes.
Like
it's a little hard to see on the camera, but it's this beautiful paper cutout scene with a, I'm not sure if it's a sunset or a sunrise, but it's very pretty.
Yes. Yeah, the artist who did that is Melanie Strickland, who is a local artist, actor, who I believe she's moved out of Bellingham since the writing and publication of Princess of Lies. But yeah, she was kind enough to lend her talents to the book, and yeah, so Melanie, if you are out there, I cannot thank you enough.
Yeah. So I do have one question that's mostly just to satisfy my own curiosity. When I was
Yes.
reading the book, I really liked all the names of the characters and the places and the countries. It really reminded me, and now that you said that you were inspired by things like The Labyrinth, it really reminded me of those early 80s fantasy movies that had these kind of fantastical names that were also plays on words most of the time. Like towards the end of the book, there's a there's a country called Albadzia,
Yes.
and they're not very good. Is there any particular bit of wordplay or bit of humor in the book that you're especially proud of?
Most of the names just came up at the top of my head, like sounds that I thought fit the characters well. Kind of the only one that I really put a lot of wordplay into, besides Albadzia, and I believe there is a city that I named Peaceton, which is named in a list of places that are at war. And but as far as character names, the one that I really meant to have any kind of wordplay is Stalil, which which comes from, first of all, like stellar or stella, and that kind of star-based naming scheme, and the word little. So little star is yeah, where that comes from. And the rest of them are, yeah, more based on the feel of the syllables than actual wordplay with specific meanings.
Yeah, that's great. And then the next question in the chat is also my next question. Do you have any, now that you've published your first novel, do you have any more story ideas on the horizon? Are you gonna maybe think about a second novel, or are you gonna go back to writing plays?
Right now, I am mostly writing plays. As has been mentioned during the introduction of this event, I write mostly short plays for the Sylvia Center for the Arts. I have been writing for things like their 48-hour theater festivals for the past couple of years, I want to say. And just to plug this really quickly, they have another 48-hour theater festival coming up in September that I will be a part of. And as far as books, though, short answer, yes. Long answer, I have no idea when.
Yeah.
I have an idea that it is currently taking shape, and I'm sort of been working on getting my skills up to the point where they can match my ambition for the project. Right now, I want to sort of think about taking where I started with Princess of Lies, with that kind of dreamlike world, and maybe bring it out into a bigger, more expansive world and story. Like right now, Princess of Lies takes place almost entirely within one city, and I've really admired writers who can build whole worlds with complex histories. I love lore. I'm one of the kind of readers who reads Lord of the Rings and goes right to the appendices and and like the early works and the Silmarillion and things that go like way into the history of all of the people and the places. And so I would like to do sort of my own take on that kind of world building.
Yeah. I'm clean out of questions, but it looks like the audience might have more. So we can move into Q&A now.
Okay.
If you have any closing statements, anything you want to put on the horizon, if you have a show coming up besides the 48-hour thing, I'm giving you permission to plug those as well.
Oh, geez. Well, I don't have anything specific to plug, but keep an eye out. Definitely. Anything that I will write, though, will be through Village Books, through local means. So keep supporting local authors, keep supporting local bookstores so that I can continue to do this. That's the first message that I would have to put out there. And any other closing statement would just to sort of follow the moral of my own book is that if there's a work of fiction that you really like, could be Princess of Lies, could be anything. Don't just pay attention to the big name on the cover. Pay attention to maybe the names that are there that don't get brought up in lights, because those people do just as much to make the thing that you love the thing that it is, even more than the big names in a lot of cases. And so, yeah, watch all the credits after the movie is my closing statement.
Video's not starting. There we go. Sorry, my video was having trouble there. All right, there are a couple more questions, Kai. Carolyn is an English teacher, and she's asking, what are some themes or lessons that you would want younger readers to learn from Princess of Lies?
Well, I feel like I just kind of answered that with my closing statement. But as far as any other things, it's hard for me to get into why I want people to get this out of Princess of Lies without going into some heavy spoilers. But a big idea that I want people to sort of think about is like your own reality and your own truth is specific to you. And even if people try to tell you like things are this way, which I feel happens a lot in childhood, is experiences tend to be invalidated by the outside, by outside forces, by other people. And this is also true of adulthood as well, is that people are like, no, what you're feeling isn't really this way, it's more this. And so I hope that people can kind of like own their own truths, even if those truths are seen as different or wrong by others.
The next question, Silas is currently reading the book, and he's asking, how old are Ollie and Lefo, and what do they look like?
That is a very good question. I wrote the book from the perspective of a child, and so when I wrote the adult characters, I was kind of thinking about how when you like, especially with little kids, it's hard to tell the exact ages of people who are older than you. They all kind of fall into the nebulous void of adulthood. But as far as those two are concerned, I would imagine like late 20s, early 30s. So still young, still very eager, but maybe a bit later on in their careers than they really want to think that it is. And as far as appearances go, I prefer for people to sort of come up with their own ideas of what the characters look like. That's part of the, I feel, collaboration of writing a novel, is that you can kind of, is that the writer gives like the basic details that they do, and then the reader fills in the rest and sort of creates the world with the author. So yeah, that's my answer to that, is they look like whatever you want them to look like.
I know a lot of authors like the audience to interpret the characters in their own way, which I really love. Some authors like even say that they don't have like official pronunciations, like for the ones that are like hard to pronounce. They say like there's no correct way. It's just however you read it, which I enjoy. That way I'm not worrying that when the movie comes out, they're going to be saying it some different way or something.
Oh, yeah. If I can interject really quickly, that is also true of my own work. So any pronunciations I give during this event, do not take them as canon. If you were reading it differently, then your interpretation is just as right as mine.
I like Asher's comment, 6-year-old staring at an 18-year-old. Wow, you're really, really old. And then the 30-something next to them, quiet sobbing.
Yes.
When I was a kid at like the grocery store, I would be like, wow, there's so many grown-ups. Or like, I wouldn't like consciously think that, but I thought of the employees as adults, but now they're like high schoolers, college students, a lot of the cashiers and such.
Yeah.
They're just the perspective changes so much. Okay, there is lost the next question. Okay. I think we covered, are there any more books? Okay, I don't think we've gotten this one yet. What goes into writing children versus adult characters? I think you kind of answered that a little bit, because you said it's from a child's perspective. So when you were writing the adult characters, you were trying to write it from their perspective.
Yeah. What I really like about writing child characters is that they haven't learned as much how to sort of regulate or control or put a lid on their emotions. So everything is just the biggest thing in the world. If something bad happens, it's the worst thing they've experienced. That's a lot of fun to explore. And also in childhood, there's this sort of expectation of safety or certainty that, like, you know, the authority figures in your life are going to protect you, or, you know, or if not that, even just at least control the environment that you're in. So when that authority, it turns out to be not protecting them, or the boundaries of your world sort of fall out of place, I love exploring that kind of, how do you navigate that? What's, you know, how do you explore a world that suddenly has become way bigger than you previously thought it was?
Yeah. I think this is the second to last question. If you had your pick, what medium would a retelling of Princess of Lies be? For example, animated, play, movie.
If that is a very good question. And not one that I really thought about, like the idea kind of formed into my head as a novel. But so first of all, to answer that question, like what would an adaptation look like? I would say definitely not by me. I would love to see what other people come up with it. But I do think that theater would be a fun way to explore the text, just even in the sense that like theater, like novels, are very collaborative, and also with theater, it's kind of special in that not everything you see is literal. Like to steal an example of like the inherent uniqueness of theater from another writer, Neil Gaiman, the example he used was that in theater, you can put a table on stage and say like, oh, come and step into my office. And then it's an office table. And then in another scene, you can take that same table, turn it aside, and put some food on it, and it's a dinner table. And the audience will immediately believe that it's a dinner table and not question that reality at all. And I think that there's a lot that you can play with that.
Yeah.
Also, I'd love to see an animated version of it just because I love cartoons.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
And then there is Carolyn asks, who was the most difficult character to write? I think we heard that Leffa was your favorite. Who was the most difficult?
I will just give a name of a character, Trisher, the butler, and I will not explain why.
I'm guessing spoilers are.
Yeah, spoilers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have to say I'm glad I got a chance to be at this event. I saw your book on the shelf and it caught my eye, and I read the back. I was like, this sounds like something I want to read. And now I know even more about it. I'm excited to read it. A lot of my friends did theater in high school. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much to our audience members for joining us today. Right now, I'm going to send the link to the Village Books website where you can find this book. And again, for the Bellingham folks in the audience, Village Books is also open for in-person browsing. We close at 9 p.m. every day, except Sunday we close at 8 p.m. And also in the chat, I sent the link to the YouTube video where you can watch past events or rewatch this one once it's uploaded, or if your friends are interested. And Kai or Shalane, do you have any final words, either of you? And if not, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Kai, for sharing with us. And have a lovely evening, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.